Our next speaker is Lary, and he will be speaking on distance learning. IBL thrives in the online pedagogical environment. Thank you.
For the past 25 years, I've been making educational documentaries, and the way I would do it is I would have an idea for a subject, and then I would research the subject, and I would produce the programs. And I'd usually pick a subject I didn't know anything about, and I would just learn it by asking questions and by contacting experts. So for 25 years, I was practicing IBL and not knowing it. And I didn't know about it until about 5 years ago, I got the opportunity to produce the audiovisual for these sessions and learned what IBL was. Up until that time, I'd been kind of an intellectual cowboy. But in the summer, I will take these programs that we record, and I'll sit in a room and I'll go over them frame by frame, second by second. And in the process of doing that, for 5 years, being intimately involved in the professors that give presentations at this seminar, how they teach, I learned a lot of things about teaching and a lot of things about pedagogy. And I want to thank Mr. Lucas and the Educational Advancement Foundation and everybody here for giving me this opportunity, because it's totally enriched my life. And one professor said to me, he said, you know, why don't you go back to school and legitimize your academic credentials? I went through the University of Texas in 3 years, changed my major 5 times, and never went to class. And I've been learning on my own ever since. But you know, that made sense to me, because I'd been interviewing these great professors all these years, and I always felt I was missing something. There was gaps in my knowledge that I wanted to fill in. So I started investigating how I could do that, and I found Walden University, which is the oldest and probably the finest online university there is. And the more I looked into it, the more interesting it became, and I realized that online education is really the modern realization of IBL. And my degree is going to be in educational psychology. I'm going to have one of the first PhDs in specializing on teaching psychology online in cyberspace. But in cyberspace, you don't get dressed, you don't drive to school, you don't park, you don't hurry to class, you don't have any classroom distractions. It's just your mind in cyberspace. Everything that you do in class is between your ears. Online education, e-learning, or distance learning courses are defined simply as being 80% of the content is delivered online. Online learning is asynchronous, meaning everybody goes to class when they want to, when it's convenient for them. You have weekly assignments, and you turn them in, and you post your answers online, and then everybody else in the class posts their answers online. And you go and you get graded on how your discussions are posted and how your responses are posted. They all have to be well thought out, well researched, well written, with peer-reviewed references. How many people in here have ever taken an online course? How many have taught an online course? Okay, well, you know that they are convenient, economical, creative. It deals purely with the intellect, and it's the ideal IBL environment. So when you get your questions, they're all open-ended. You have to research the questions, come up with answers. And there is no right or wrong answer. And you just study what you want, and you put the answers up there, and people respond to them. And so it's really a sharing and a collaboration of knowledge. And this is a quote that everybody's been using today, and it's true. Now, as you know, the IBL started back with Socrates, who used to travel the streets of Athens and ask his students questions, because they realized that when people found the answers within themselves, it was a lot stronger than being told what to do. And William James, the great psychologist, said truth is what works. Vygotsky uses scaffolding. These are all psychologists that used pedagogical techniques that were aligned with IBL. And now people say, like Robert Frost said, I'm not a teacher, I'm an awakener. But is it valid? Now, in this report that came out in 2011, they interviewed 80% of all the higher education enrollments in the United States. And they found, since 2002 to 2009, the enrollment increased from 1.6 million to 6 million. Enrollment in online universities is constantly going up, where in brick and mortar universities, it remains the same. And when they contact the students about student satisfaction, 3/4 of them think that online education is superior, somewhat superior, about the same. In fact, as you go through these different categories and you try to evaluate the difference between online and distance learning, the beauty of it is it doesn't cost the universities much money. They don't have to build buildings or facilities, so it's really the future of education. In one of my classes, I had a guy from Switzerland, I had an ex-military psychologist, I had a nurse from Chicago. So you have great cultural diversity. And so you bring all these different points of view and experience into the classroom. It's really something special. Now, there are some people that don't believe it. In fact, there's about 10% of the people who resist it. And they resist it primarily because they don't do it. They don't believe in it. And so it's basically a self-fulfilling prophecy. And if you look at the people who are on the fence, who have now climbed onto the bandwagon for online education, you can see where the trend is going. And it's the future. It's the future of education, and I'm just really enthralled by it, and appreciate you giving me the opportunity to express a little bit of it with you here today. Any questions?
Hello. How do you handle group work? How do you ensure that students who are in groups do their work in groups?
They have a thing called Turnitin. Turnitin is where they guard against plagiarism. Turnitin has got everything that's ever been posted online. So if you post an assignment and you turn it in, it will in like 5 minutes go through it, compare it to everything that's ever been written or posted online, including all the professional journals and academic assignments and papers, and give you a percentage of what the duplication is. It will show you where the duplication occurred and everything else. Now, when you have group assignments, you have to work independently with the others in the group. And it was very interesting because you'd have to call him on the phone and interview him and then transcribe the interview and then write it up and then send it to him. Then you'd have to bring it into a coding software and pick out different themes and key statements and do a complete qualitative analysis of the work. So you work back and forth within groups, and then you turn it in together, and you're graded, and you get like a grade for the whole group assignment. But the teacher, one of the great things about it is you get a very detailed grading rubric, so you know exactly what you're doing and what you're getting into. Was that answer your question, or was it something else?
In all the classes you've taken online, did you feel that the online platform was better or worse for certain kinds of classes?
I don't think it'll be very good for mathematics, unfortunately. It's really good for psychology and the social sciences because they're more abstract. There's really no right answer, whereas in math it's very precise. And I was talking to one of the professors in the hall about this earlier, and he didn't think it would translate well to mathematics, but it translates really well to learning theory and English and that kind of thing. Any time that you can get into a subject where original research is rewarded, I think it would work really well.
Well, I had a question, but I'm first going to make a statement to what you just said, because I do online stuff in mathematics, and a lot of the programs have come up with more dynamical systems and more things where you can do, and I hope to keep working on that, and I'll get back to you later. I'll tell you more about it.
So you think you can teach math online?
Oh yeah, I'm doing it now.
Oh, that's fantastic. I was wrong.
But
I'm not a mathematician, so I don't know.
Well, that's what I was going to ask,
great.
is what sort of classes are you teaching? Because I was going to ask about the math programs that are out there. But I'm guessing you can't answer that.
No, I'm into psychology, how people think and why they think the way they do and behave the way they do, which underlies really everything. Mm-hmm. And knowing how to know is my chief skill, and I think everybody in IBL realizes that's the key paradigm.
Well, I taught for an online university for a little bit, and I can speak a little bit to what you were asking about.
Which one?
I taught for Kaplan and for Grand Canyon, and the way those courses work, and this is because of the clientele, largely it is very much, here's a problem, here's how you do it, now do a few more like it. It's pretty straightforward. but there is group work in some of the implementations. Like there was a calculus class, and one of the courses that they actually made me take to learn how to teach for them, you do it by email. And it works fairly well. I think there's a lot, and there's a lot of there are a lot of things to worry about with like getting people to write the mathematics, because it all has to be written and it all has to be typed into their system, and notationally there are limitations. But this is something I'm very interested in seeing if IBL can be done in mathematics. I think well, you were saying mathematics is very precise, but I think we are of a crowd that thinks that there is a lot more process to it than just getting the right answer, and this is something that I'm curious about other people's experiences in mathematics specifically. I think there are some technological hurdles, but I'd like to hear more about IBL specifically in mathematics to see if this is something that we can do, because I think our university is going to go that way. I taught something called quantitative analysis, which is sort of mathematics for business majors. I taught calculus. I taught a Euclidean geometry class, and I taught statistics. And the Euclidean geometry class is an example of a course that really did have a lot of trouble, because that's a course I would have loved to do differently, but just the technological limitations of what you can draw and what you can state and what you can type were problems. I don't know what it was. But I will say that the way these things all run, as you know, is discussion boards.
Yes.
And that's the thing I would love to see. I mean, I think if an IBL class were to be done online, I think it would have to be done with a really well developed set of discussion questions, like IBL notes for a discussion board. And that's something I'm interested in.
Well, I mean, think about it. Think about it. You go into a classroom and you got 50 minutes and you got 30 people in there, and you ask a question, and what do you think, Harry? Well, I think this. What do you think, Steve? I think this, and you're in and out of there. Whereas with this asynchronous online learning, you spend hours and hours preparing a response and editing it, putting it in an APA format, and putting it up there, and then the other people spend hours evaluating it and developing well thought out responses, so everything you see is refined information. It's just not spurious, off-the-minute comments, which is the real value of it to me. And you can spend as much time or as little time as you need to. Anybody else?
I know we're running out of time, so just real quick, I just wanted to say, for those of you who are interested, I have taught IBL online math courses. So my name's Gary. Come find me. I would love to talk to you. There's some great platforms out there. One is called Adobe Connect. So come find me. We'll talk.
Is that it? Thank you.